Hey guys, welcome to week one of CR161. Our technology didn't go too well last night, so I just thought I'd do a quick little recording for those who missed out. First of all, I just want to thank you all for coming on board in CR161 this semester. I hope we have a really good time of learning together, and I just want to thank God we can get to do that. We've always got that privilege of learning more about how God designed the world and how it comes together and how it's underpinned by mathematics. So what I want to encourage you this week is, if you haven't done so already, have a good look at the unit outline. Just look over the details there, and then get into the assessment. Just a quick overview of the assessment. The first item is to complete four accessible quizzes on Education Perfect. Some of you might be familiar with that. So those four quizzes are worth 5% each, making a total of 20%, and they'll be completed throughout the term. You'll see the first one come up in the next week or so that you can attempt. Now, prior to doing those quizzes, I really recommend that you do a practice quiz first. So when you log on to Education Perfect, you'll see practice quiz available and then the accessible quiz. The idea of that is I want everyone to be really successful and do really well. So I highly recommend you do the practice quiz, see how you go, test your understanding and knowledge, and then when you're confident, you go ahead and do the accessible quiz. The second assignment I really like, and students in previous years have said they've really appreciated being able to do something practical with what they learn. Jesus' method of teaching was to always do some theory and practice. So here we are, we're doing some mathematical theory. You'll immediately get opportunity to go and put some of it into practice through tutoring a student. So the idea is that you find a primary school age student, or if you're confident, you can merge into lower secondary, and then you tutor them for 4 sessions. And at the end of each of those sessions, you go home, take a few reflective notes. After you've completed the whole 4 tutoring sessions, you stop and reflect on the learning of the student and your own learning, and you write a reflective essay. It's all about being a reflective practitioner. So I'll go into more details on that in coming weeks, but really just this week, you really need to start thinking about which student you're going to tutor and start making inquiries, around your area as to and with their parents as to which student you might tutor. But more on that next week. And the final assessment is the final exam, which will cover all the topics within the Australian curriculum. Some people are asking last night, what kind of level are we aiming at? So what I'm aiming to cover is the topics and the types of material you'll cover in primary school and up to lower secondary, up to about grade 10 level. And that will serve a couple of purposes. One, of course, we want to equip you to become great teachers. Even though you start off primary, you might end up in a middle school situation, and you might end up teaching some lower secondary at some point. But also to equip you mathematically, so for the Landtide exam, so that you can be an excellent teacher who's got great numeracy skills when you get out there. At number 4 there, I know a lot of people have covered it already, but when you hop into Moodle, do Module 1. The focus of Module 1 is all around the Australian curriculum. Some of that can be a little bit dry, but I always like to keep the why high, like why are we doing this? What's the purpose in doing it? So it's good to have a look in those curriculum documents, look at the rationale. The rationale is really the why part. Why do we teach maths? Because maths is part of everything we do. It's part of our work and play, our leisure time. When you stop and think about it, there's maths involved in everything. So it's about equipping young people to have the skills not only for their profession, but just for daily life, just participating in society. We've got local elections coming up pretty soon. And when you look at that, there's quite a lot of maths involved in the preferential voting system that we have in Australia. So lots of practical types of things there. Within the Module 1, there should be a link through to Education Perfect. And I'd like everybody this week to complete the introductory quiz within Education Perfect. It's not accessible, but it's just a little introductory thing just to get you going there. Next week, hop into Module 2 on Moodle. Ideally, by now you've heard about the flipped classroom. Ideally, what I would like people to be able to do is to come to class with questions, ready to contribute from your learnings. We've only got a short time together, so it's not ideal for me to just sort of sit and talk at you for a whole hour, covering material, a lot of it you can just read or view for yourself. The idea is that with a flipped classroom is that you invest time going through the modules, working through the different questions that are available on Education Perfect, and then come to class with some questions or with something to contribute, rather than just be sort of a passive recipient, just sort of sitting there receiving. Come with something to ask or something to give as well. So that's just a quick summary for week 1. There was one thing I mentioned last night. When you come to, I'll just flip this over, talking about flipped classrooms. I'll just flip the whiteboard here. When you come to tutor your students, one really good model that I keep coming back to time and again is what's called CPA. It's blanked out a little bit there. CPA, I'll just swing this around. Oh, there we go. CPA. So as students are developing their mathematical understanding, it's best to start with concrete materials as much as you can. And those concrete materials could include your own fingers or hands or objects that you happen to have around in the classroom. So start there. Encourage students to use their hands, use their fingers for adding and subtracting and those sorts of basic computations. So any sort of concrete materials can be really, really useful. Good to have like a nice box of the the little cubes, little wooden cubes in your classroom. They can be handy. So always start there with something concrete that students can handle and view. Make it real. And then once students start developing their understanding in that way, then get into pictures. So go to pictorial and draw little diagrams, draw little pictures. That can all be helpful. And then from there, move on to the abstract. When you think about it, a lot of what we do in maths is all dealing with the abstract. I just wrote 6 + 3 equals 9. All of those are abstractions. Those two little lines there that we read as equals, they're all abstractions. They in some ways, most of them don't have any meaning on their own. We've just subscribed a meaning to them. So we need to work through this sort of this is a model of working. Sometimes when we're teaching, we don't always get to start with the concrete. We might start off with some pictures or some stories or something like that, and then eventually move to the abstract. But this is a model that you might find helpful in your tutoring. Right, so I want to encourage you this week. Maths can be fun. Maths can be enjoyable. It's really, really practical. It's really applicable in everyday life. So I look forward to having a good, smooth technology session next week, and get to see you all then. Have a great week.